just going to ask Simon Pinchbeck to come and join me. Have you got a microphone for Simon? Yeah? Thank you, mate. So every year we like to, interview and put our mates in front of you. And last year, remember, we had some very profound times. We had my mates Chris and Swanee last year. They're here this year, for those of you here last year. And Chris shared a remarkable story of how he came out of quite a life of violence and terrorism, and Swanee out of some really tough stuff. And they're here again this year. It's brilliant. They've been blazing a trail around the place, sharing the message of Jesus. And we've got our mate Simon here with us today, who also works in CVM around the place. So it's kind of going to be just a few minutes, kind of a mix of an interview, and then, but actually Simon's a professional communicator anyway, so probably just do his own thing, which is what everyone does when they go out. People just do their own thing, don't we? It's kind of freestyle it a bit. Have you noticed that? We freestyle it. So Simon, why don't you just start by telling the guys a bit about what you used to do and what that led into, and I'll just let you go off on that for a couple of minutes.
Okay, thanks, Carl. What a special night, mate, believe me. I grew up and I didn't have a lot of love when I was growing up. I can't remember a time when my mother or father told me that they loved me. I don't think it was their fault, it was just a generational thing. But one example of this was that I was a very good rugby player, and I played rugby from the age of 11, first team rugby, all the way up to 21. I played representative rugby. My father never came to see me once. I didn't think much of that at the time, but when I had my own two boys, I realised, Carl, just how I needed to go and watch them play rugby. And at the age of 19, and it was funny because we watched the Sweeney, bit of Sweeney on a telly, and that was what watching the Sweeney made me want to join the Metropolitan Police. And at the age of 19, I came down to London and I joined the police, joined the Metropolitan Police. And I was a police officer over 20 years. Did all sorts of things, Carl. I walked the beat, drove the fast cars, did a lot of plainclothes stuff. I was on the buses, they call it a territorial support group with the shields and everything. Got to a riot squad in this country. I played rugby for the police, I boxed for the police, I fought for the police and drank for the police, Carl. It was one of them. It was.
Did he used to have some massive moustache at that point as well? Didn't they used to call you?
I didn't think you'd mention that, Carl.
Come on, mate.
But I had a big moustache in them days, and they called me the Walrus, especially.
I'm not going to laugh at him. He's a big fella, isn't he?
But you know, Carl, I was about the furthest away from being a Christian as ever been in my life, and I'm ashamed to tell you I used to swear on the Bible many times in court. It meant nothing to me. Might as well have been a copy of FHM, Women's Weekly, or The Sporting Life. That's what it meant to me at that time. But one main theme ran through my police career, Carl, and that was football. I did an awful lot of football duty. I spent 10 years over the Arsenal. Praise the Lord, I feel at home now. That's fantastic. We've got a few gooners in the house tonight.
Not next year. We might add that to the old booking in form, I think. What football team do you support? West Ham, that's it. Only
Well, funny you should mention West Ham, Carl, to be honest with you, because I don't know if you remember, gentlemen, in the days before All-Seater Stadium, they had terraces, and Arsenal had a huge bank of terrace. They called it the North Bank, and that held about 20,000 people. And whenever Arsenal played a London club, we always had a big battle in there because everyone got in there all mixed together, all the same accents. And I've had many battles with West Ham, Chelsea, Millwall. I don't know how to say that word, Tottenham, Carl. It sort of chokes me. But one game I do remember, it was like a watershed game, and it was against West Ham. It was May the 2nd, 1982. That was 3 weeks before I was due to get married. And the West Ham United had a terrible little firm of hooligans at the time. They called them the ICF, or the Intercity firm. And this bunch were the most organised bunch that there was. And they came in, they trapped the Arsenal fans in the North Bank, and they attacked them. They did a great big smoke bomb, red smoke bomb, and I was the first copper in the middle of that. And when they saw me, instead of attacking each other, they turned on me, and I was lucky to get out of that without any serious injury. But The sad thing was that in the fighting around the ground that night, a young man named Paul Dickerson got stabbed to death, all for a game of football. After that, I did a number of years with the Central London Football Intelligence Unit, which monitored the hardcore hooligans who come through our capital city. I was married. I was married to a lovely girl called Linda. Did I love her? The answer's got to be no, Cole. I had a heart that was as hard as anything. She'd say, I love you. I'd say, me too. That was about as far as we'd get. I had 2 boys, Tom and Jamie. Did I love them? I cared for them, but I didn't know how to love. So I didn't love them. I call it, I was approaching 40, Cole. I don't know if you've reached that age yet.
43, mate.
Well,
but I look quite young, don't I? It's a clean conscience, that's what it does.
Well, gentlemen, for me it was a bit different. They call it the male menopause or a midlife crisis, and I got myself this great big tattoo on my arm and an earring in my ear. I thought, well, I was all that in a bag of chips, believe me. My life was disappearing. It was going in a different direction. I started, we make choices in life, and every choice we have has a consequence, gentlemen, doesn't it? So everything we choose, something happens. And I chose to join a younger set of coppers, all single men, plainclothes units, and I went out with them and I started enjoying a single man's lifestyle. I didn't care. I was so selfish, it was my time. I didn't care about my wife and my kids. My wife would be crying, where are you going again? All I wanted to do is put on a clean shirt, get out and just leave her. She wouldn't know when I was coming home. I don't know, but we used to have them pages back in the day, and I'd be sitting at a dinner table, a pager would go off, someone would say, I want to see you, and I'd be out lying as much as I could, anything to get out of the house. I got fed up with my wife nagging. I'm ashamed to tell you, gentlemen, I left her, and I left her at a time when her mother was terminally ill with cancer. Her mother was dying with cancer, and I walked out on her because I didn't care. It was selfish, selfish, selfish. All I cared about was me. I left her to bring up 2 young boys, hold down a full-time job, and look after a very sick mother. And things got worse for me, because in a nightclub in North London, I had a fight with an off-duty copper. I knocked him to the floor, knocked his teeth out, and I found myself on a serious assault charge. Some 15 months later, I stood trial in a Greenwich Crown Court in South London, Carl, with the judge and the jury with all the wigs on. And if I had got found guilty of this charge, I would have gone to prison. And for someone who'd been a copper, that wasn't going to be a great place, mate, was it? So, fortunately, I got not guilty, and now I got not guilty. That's another tale entirely. But I was so selfish then, I couldn't see my part in it. So I walked away from the police. And looking back, you know, many people say they felt they've had a hole here. And I had a hole here looking back, and I tried to fill it with all sorts of things. I haven't told you about the training or the drinking I used to do as a copper and playing rugby. But now I was about to see something, Cole, which I thought was going to fill this hole, and that was money. Because I used to train up at a local gym in Chigwell and Essex, the David Lloyd Club. I used to see fellas there, Cole, with pretty women around them, nice cars, plenty of money, and didn't work. And I wasn't silly, I knew what they was into, and I thought, I want a bit of that, I deserve a bit of that lifestyle. So I started training with these fellas, started going out and doing a bit of low-level criminal activity. We started off doing a bit of low-level debt collecting, which wasn't governed by the Office of Fair Trading, if you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Once they found they could trust me, we moved up to bigger things, and once every couple of months we'd get information, smash into place and take lumps of cash, and I could take more money in one night than I can take 3 times, and even more on a CVM salary. That's the truth, over the year. And I had a bit of fun, that gentleman, I tell you, I had a bit of fun with that money. I could buy anything I wanted. But you know, none of that stuff, Carl, as Arthur said earlier today, none of that stuff ever satisfies you. Because I was just feeding it. This hole wasn't getting filled. I just wanted more and more money. 5 things I learned about money, if I can tell them quickly, Carl, was the more you get, the more you want. The more you get, the more you spend. The more you get, the more you lose. The more you get, the more you worry. And the more you get, the more you leave. You don't see a hearse, Carl, with a 7-bedroom mansion going down the road, do you? And the Bible's, people misquote the Bible. They say, money is the root of all evil. Well, it's not. They miss one word, don't they? It's love of money is the root of all evil. And it's the love of anything you put before God. Well, I got greedy. I wanted more and more of this money. This wasn't satisfying me. You know, I'll give you an example. I went out and bought a 4.7 litre Cherokee Jeep, blacked out windows, registration mark was WAR, War. I thought, yeah, that's a bit of me. I was driving this thing around Essex and I thought I was Billy Big Bananas. That's the truth. 2 weeks later, Cole, they brought out a new model. I didn't want this car I wanted a new model. I went out and got the new model. I saw a Range Rover Sport. I wanted that. That's how it gets you. The love of money. Well, these fellows said to me, if you want more, you want to accumulate more, you've got to speculate, which means if you want to get more out, you've got to put more in. They come up with a scheme that work was going to be a dirty word, money was going to come floating in, villas in Florida, all that sort of thing. So I put my money into this scheme, but there's no honour amongst thieves, especially where a pound note is concerned, because they took my money and that was the last I saw of it. I went out to Spain, Port of Banús, Marbella, that area, to try and get it back. But I realised it had gone, they'd had me over, they'd carved me up. So I came back, picked up the phone and said, I've nothing more to do with you, and threw the phone away. And that left me the lowest I've ever been in my life. Because they'd taken away the money, the things I could get with the money, but most of all, they'd taken away this dream I had of being this complete person. And at the time, I was the lowest I'd ever been in my life, and the police were following me on a daily basis to try and get hold of me. The villains didn't trust me because they thought I was going to grass them up. Felt like I was strung up between two wild horses. I was on the pit of destruction. If someone had said go, and this is the truth because I've heard it since, I'd have been ripped apart. I would have either ended up in a shallow grave in Epping Forest, where I lived, or doing a very heavy prison sentence. But Cole, that's where God threw me a lifeline. And that's where all that other rubbish in my life stops and a new life begins. I was in the gym, the same gym as I was in training. You see, I was full of anger and resentment, and the more I thought about it, the more angry I got, the more I wanted to hurt these fellas that ripped me off. Murder was on my heart. I was fueling up anger, wanted to really sort of hurt these fellas. As I stormed out of the gym on a Saturday afternoon, I looked over on the running machine was a guy I knew to be a very, very violent man. A real top-level violent man, a leader of a drugs gang in that part of Essex. But Cole, this man had turned his life around through his faith in Jesus Christ. And when I looked at him on that Saturday afternoon, the peace that was shining out of him, I thought, if God can change someone like him, there must be something in it for me. And I went over, we started talking, we went out and had a cup of coffee, and here's the rub with this one. I said, you know, I used to be a copper. He said, yeah. I said, well, back in the day, they called me the Walrus over at the Arsenal. He said to me, I remember you. He said, because you used to chase me all over Arsenal, because back in the day, he was an Arsenal hooligan. But God had brought us together for me to stop asking questions about faith. I call that a God instance in my life. And he said one thing to me. He said, you've got to stop blaming everybody in your life. You've got to stop blaming your parents, people that rip you off, the police, and take a long look at yourself. Like the Michael Jackson song. Let's start with a man in the mirror. He kept talking about going to his church, Cole. Church wasn't on my radar. As Arthur had told you, you know, church wasn't on his radar either. And, you know, a Christian with a guitar, that was my worst nightmare. Bless Mr. Kendrick, really, yeah. But at the time, you know, he just wouldn't, you know. As you can imagine. But anyway, we went down to... He persuaded me to come to his church, and it was a church in West London called the Holy Trinity Church in Brompton, Knightsbridge, and as we walked through the doors of that church, February the 10th, 2002, the peace that hit me was like no other feeling I've ever felt before. That evening I said a prayer with a guy named Nicky Gamble. I didn't know who he was, but I now know he...
Who is he?
I still don't know. I know he fronts up a Christian course called Alpha. Yeah. Oh. I don't know if you've heard of that, but and he's a vicar of the church. I didn't know where it was taking me, but it invited Jesus into my life. I just felt it was right to do that. That summer I went on that course called Alpha, the Alpha course. And you know, I'd made some bad choices in my life, but this is probably the best choice I'd ever made. Because I went on that course, and by the time I got on that course, I was back with my wife, to be honest with you. but only because I got nowhere else to live. So things weren't great, I was still in wrong relationships. And I asked her a couple of years ago, I said, do you remember that Alpha course? She said, yes. I said, did you ever see a difference in me? She said, from the very first moment, very first night you went on that course, I noticed a difference. I was waiting for the bubble to burst, but it never did. See, God heals, God restores. And on that Alpha course, I didn't learn about religion, I didn't learn about tradition. I learned that a scumbag like me could find forgiveness for all the nonsense I've been involved in. I was truly sorry for the stuff I'd done. But not only that, the most amazing thing was, there was a God that wanted to know me. Out of all the millions of people in the world, he wanted to know me through his son, Jesus Christ. They had a spirit weekend on this course, and I went away and I was still hanging on to a bit of bitterness. And I was just getting my head around Jesus and God. Now they're banging on about the Holy Spirit. What's all that? You know? So I went on and went. But when I asked the Holy Spirit to come into my life on that Saturday night, all those feelings of bitterness and hatred went away. I was left with the most incredible feeling of peace that I've felt in my life. I'd had peace before when Arsenal were winning. I had a few quid in my pocket. I had a nice car, but this was the peace that I was getting when everything was going wonky, mate.
So if you were gonna say, you know, in a nutshell, one thing to the blokes listening here, maybe blokes who don't know Jesus yet, if you could say one thing, this is your shot to say one thing to them, what would it be?
Can I say two things?
No, of course you can. Big fella, isn't he?
First of all, Carl, this morning I was walking along the field with two good friends of mine from CVM, Brian Green and Gasky. All three of us are ex-coppers. And we just smiled to ourselves. Because if you'd have told us 15, 20 years ago, we'd be walking in a field in Swindon. Telling people and ourselves what Jesus had done in our lives, I would have bashed you up. Gasky would have locked you up and Brian would have thrown away the key. That is the truth. And the last thing I'd like to leave these guys with, Carl, is this. I've done a lot of boxing in my life. And yes, I've been hit very hard and I can hit very hard, but nothing hits you as hard as life. You can't do this alone, gentlemen. You cannot do this alone. You need good men around you. This is why you need men, this is why you need CVM, but most of all, Carl, this is why you need Jesus. Praise God.